12 items are about to spike in value, and one of them might be sitting in your basement right now, and you have no idea. Not paintings, not china cabinets. I mean the cardboard box you haven't opened since the 90s, the rusted tin in the garage, the desk drawer nobody's touched since the late 90s. The one at number 1 made a grown man go silent in front of his entire family. By the end of this, you will never look at your storage spaces the same way again. I'll give it to you straight before we start digging, because blind optimism is the fastest way to get swindled. Most of what you've inherited is worth exactly what you fear it's worth. Very little. Scratched end tables are still just scratched end tables. But here's what 30 years in the appraisal field taught me. In nearly every estate I assessed, there were 1 or 2 objects hidden away worth more than the entire house and everything in it. The family never knew. The estate liquidators usually didn't either. The ones who did know kept quiet, handed over $300 for the lot, and smiled all the way to the auction house. Number 12. Old maps and atlases. The rolled-up papers behind the water heater, the ones pressed flat in the bottom of a dusty trunk. You'd guess the values in the frame, or just the age of the paper. It's usually the cartographer and the borders. Digital mapping has made hand-drawn maps feel rare in a way they never used to, and the markets followed. Original maps by 17th century masters like Joan Bleu can fetch 5 or 10,000 a sheet at specialist houses. Even a modest county map from the 1800s brings solid money if it has original hand coloring. Why do they end up in basements? Because somebody's grandfather picked up an old book at a farm sale, and to the family, it was just an old book. Tonight's move: unroll everything gently on a table, never the floor, and check the bottom margins for the engraver's name. Don't trim ragged edges. Don't tape tears. I appraised a house once where the china the family fought over made $800 total, and a folded map stuck inside a battered dictionary made $14,000. And number 12 is exactly the kind of thing they count on you tossing before you've even unrolled it. Number 11. Cast iron mechanical banks. The heavy, dark metal toys in a coffee can in the garage. Everyone assumes it's scrap metal, or a kid's plaything at best. But cast iron mechanical banks from the late 1800s and early 1900s are having a real moment. They were built to teach kids thrift, with a moving mechanism that swallowed the coin as a trick. Rare examples in good original condition have hammered down for $40,000 or more this past year. The whole market runs on original paint, repainted, and the value drops 90%. Tonight's move: weigh it in your hand, look for a patent date cast into the base. Never clean the paint with solvents. Originality is the entire engine here. The worst one I ever saw. A family let a liquidator toss a box of rusty iron into scrap for 10 cents a pound. One piece in that bin was a rare mechanical bank that later sold for $25,000. 10 cents a pound. Sit with that, because it says something about your own basement most people never stop to consider. A basement is sorted by convenience, not by value. That took me 20 years to really understand. Downstairs gets displayed and insured. The basement just accumulates, which means something worth $40,000 can sit in the dark for 50 years without a single person forming an opinion about it. The clearance trade knows this. It's why they'll quote you a price for the basement site unseen. And nowhere does that trick pay off better for them than with furniture, because this next one is where families lose the most money without ever realizing it happened. Number 10. Mid-century designer furniture. The ugly wooden chair your aunt kept in the den that nobody wanted to sit in. This is where families get burned by their own assumptions. Generic brown wood has basically collapsed as a market. Your grandmother's Victorian wardrobe is nearly unsellable today, but pieces by named 20th century designers Gustav Stickley, George Nakashima have gone up as much as 40% in 5 years. The rooms are drawing a brutal line. No name, no money, big name, real money. A simple Nakashima walnut table can sell for 50,000. Tonight's move: turn every chair and table upside down. Look for a burned stamp, a paper label, a chalk signature underneath. Never refinish a piece to make it pretty. Original patina is where the money lives. I watched a family pay a hauler to take a Stickley rocking chair to the dump. It sold for 12,000 at auction 3 months later. Number 9. Vintage mechanical watches. The old watch in the sock drawer that stopped ticking in 1987. Everyone assumes digital killed these off. The opposite happened. Specific vintage references have outperformed the stock market over the last decade. A 1960s Rolex Submariner has gone up over 300%. The difference between a $3,000 watch and a $30,000 watch can be one reference number printed on the dial. Tonight's move: don't wind it, don't shake it, don't polish the case. Read every word and number between the lugs and on the dial. Write it down exactly. A polished case can destroy value overnight. The one I remember best came out of a shoebox of dead watches at an estate sale. 6 were worth nothing. The 7th was a 1967 Omega Speedmaster. $28,000, dead battery, 40 years in a drawer. Now, picture that same drawer logic applied to something the size of a suitcase, because that's exactly what happened with the beige plastic box nobody wanted to move. Number 8. Early personal computers. The heavy beige plastic boxes shoved in the back of the closet. Vintage tech has exploded as a category, bridging old-school antiques and modern collectibles. First-generation home computers from the late 70s and early 80s are pulling in staggering numbers. An original Apple I, found in a California garage, sold for $345,000 recently. Even a common Apple II or an original IBM PC can bring real money complete with original packaging and manuals. Tonight's move: open the closet. Look for beige cases with rainbow or fruit logos. Keep every cable, every manual, every floppy disk together. Never throw away the cardboard box. That box is a multiplier. One family nearly recycled a cardboard box holding an early Atari prototype while cleaning out a deceased uncle's apartment. A neighbor recognized it. It later sold for over $10,000. Number 7. Tobacco and baseball cigarette cards. The small, flimsy cardboard pieces grandparents used to stiffen a shirt collar or clip into bicycle spokes. Looks like scrap paper to whoever's clearing the house. The market for early tobacco cards is red hot right now. The legendary T206 Honus Wagner sold for over $7 million. You don't need a Wagner. Complete sets of lesser-known players or early aviation cards in decent shape routinely go for thousands. Tonight's move: open every old book and shake it gently. Check inside sewing kits and small tin boxes. Don't touch the surface with bare fingers if you can help it, and never write on them or pin them to a board. I saw a family throw out a tobacco tin because they wanted the tin. 30 cards inside went straight into the fireplace. One of those cards was a rare Eddie Plank that would have paid off their mortgage. Before the top 6, the worst phrase in the English language from where I stood for 30 years is, "We just want it empty." When a family says that, the liquidators hear an opportunity. Somebody in that room knows what the small stuff is worth, and it's almost never the family. which is exactly the trap waiting in a coffee can full of political pins that most people mistake for junk drawer filler. Number 6. Political and campaign buttons. The coffee cans of metal pins from the 1960s. People assume political memorabilia is purely sentimental, but specific campaign buttons, especially from the mid-20th century, have seen a real resurgence. Rare JFK 1960 pins or earlier Theodore Roosevelt items can go for hundreds and sometimes thousands each. The value's in the rarity of the design, not the candidate. A standard slogan button might be worth $2. A 3-inch pictorial button from the same campaign could be worth $2,000. Tonight's move. Find the coffee cans and matchboxes full of pins. Look for large sizes, moving parts, unusual shapes. Don't polish them. The tarnish on the back is part of the authentication. A woman once sold a tray of 200 buttons at a yard sale for $5. The buyer took them straight to an auctioneer. 3 of those buttons were rare JFK pictorials worth $4,500 combined. Number 5. Early science fiction and comic books. The stack of magazines in the damp corner of the basement. Everyone assumes modern comics are worthless because they printed millions. But pre-1970 comics, especially early sci-fi pulps and superhero debut issues, keep breaking records. Paper degrades over decades, so very few survive in high grade. That's what's driving the prices. A low-grade copy of Action Comics #1 recently changed hands for hundreds of thousands. Even secondary titles from the 1950s, if they've got early horror or sci-fi covers, can bring thousands. Tonight's move, open the damp boxes, but handle the paper as little as possible. Check the cover date and issue number. Never use standard tape to repair a torn cover. I appraised an estate once where the heirs had used a stack of 1950s EC horror comics to level a wobbly table leg in the garage. Oil stains and all, that stack later got valued at over $30,000. Still sold. Number 4. Vintage board games and puzzles. The boxes stacked at the top of the hall closet, usually water-damaged and heavy. People assume games are only worth playing, but collectible board games have surged, specifically pre-1980 games that are complete and unpunched, early Monopoly editions, obscure adventure games with intricate metal pieces. Nostalgia buyers love these. The board matters, but having every original token and piece of play money is what actually drives the price. Tonight's move. Inventory the boxes. Count the tokens, count the play money. If the cardboard's split, don't glue it. Never write your name on the box, which used to be everyone's habit. One family almost tossed a crushed box of a 1950s game called Dark Tower while clearing a childhood bedroom. The electronic game inside still worked. It sold online for $2,000 to a collector who only wanted the parts. $2,000 for a broken box of plastic. Now picture what happens when the tarnish in your dining room isn't just tarnish. Number 3. Art Nouveau and Art Deco silver. The heavy, tarnished tea sets and serving trays pushed to the back of the sideboard. The trap. Families see tarnish and assume cheap metal, or see silver and assume it's only worth its melt weight. Generic silver plate hasn't kept up with inflation, but pieces by Tiffany or Gorham, especially in the flowing Art Nouveau or geometric Art Deco styles, are pulling huge premiums. A signed Tiffany sterling bowl can bring tens of thousands. The market's rewarding the design over the raw weight. Tonight's move, check underneath for maker's marks. Don't aggressively polish it. A little patina in the crevices actually highlights the design and proves the age. I saw a family sell an entire dining room set to a dealer for $500. The dealer spotted a small Tiffany candy dish hidden inside a sideboard drawer. That dish alone sold at auction for $9,000. The dealer kept the profit. The family never found out. Number 2. Early typewriters. The heavy, dust-covered machines in the attic trunk. People assume nobody types on these anymore, so they must be junk. Not the specific models. Early mechanical typewriters, round glass keys, intricate metal filigree, have grown as a market as younger buyers chase tactile, analog stuff for their home offices. An Oliver, an early Underwood, a colourful 50s Olivetti can fetch hundreds, sometimes thousands if the ribbon spools and type bars are intact. Tonight's move. Lift the cover, press one key slowly, watch the mechanism. Don't force stuck keys. Write down the name on the metal bar above the keyboard. Never throw away the original carrying case, even with a broken handle. I saw a family leave an old Underwood on the curb for bulk trash day. A passerby took it, wiped off the dust, and sold it to a vintage shop for $600 the next afternoon. Number 1. The shoebox of historical paper. I've saved this for last because it's the first thing every family throws away, and it's the single most valuable category on this entire list. Letters, postcards, photo albums, documents, diaries. The suitcase everyone on clearance day calls just papers. Here's what just papers can actually be. On Antiques Roadshow, a woman brought in an archive her great-great-grandmother had kept. Letters, photographs, memorabilia from the Boston Red Stockings baseball team from the 1870s, kept because her ancestor ran the boarding house where the team lived. It sat in exactly the kind of box we've been talking about for over a century. Appraised at $1 million. Made headlines everywhere. You don't need a famous baseball team for this to matter. Letters from soldiers at the front, anything tied to a historic event, autographs of famous people in old signature books, early postcards of your own hometown, stamps still on their original envelopes, usually worth more than stamps soaked off, silk escape maps, ration books, ship menus, theatre programs. Paper is where history actually lives, and history is what every collector on Earth is really buying. Tonight's move, and this is the real one. Stop asking, is this valuable? And start asking, who touched this and what was happening when they did? Read the signatures, read the postmarks. Costs nothing, takes a minute. The real treasure in any house was never the furniture. It was the witness statements. And that's the one thing on this whole list you don't get a second chance at. Once the trash truck takes them, no amount of money brings them back, which is exactly why what I'm about to tell you to do tonight matters more than anything else in this video. Every single thing we covered comes down to the same habit. Slow down, take it out of the box, read every word on it, decide nothing in poor light at the top of a ladder. Everything valuable in this video looked like clutter, and everything around it that genuinely was clutter is exactly what got thrown away. So before the clearance van gets booked, before your most efficient relative shows up with trash bags and good intentions, go up there yourself with a flashlight. Don't sell it, don't skip it, don't sign the lot away for $300. Not until you know exactly what you have. If this has you eyeing your basement door right now, hit like before you go down there. It genuinely tells me to keep making these. Subscribe, because next time we're staying in that attic for a box of old VHS tapes, the ones you've nearly thrown out a dozen times. Some of them have been quietly gaining value for decades while nobody watched, and one sealed tape sold for $75,000. Tell me in the comments how long it's been since anyone actually looked through your storage spaces and what you already suspect might be hiding up there. I read every one, and I've been proven wrong by attics too many times to doubt yours. Go have a proper look in that space. You never know.